Like you can immediately tell whether something is intentionally crafted versus one-shotted with one prompt shotted, where like there's not been going in a lot of effort and thinking. I think it's a big misconception because building a product has always been tricky. Like finding product market fit we want is still as difficult as it is today. I would even argue it might even be more difficult. And even though we have, these like insanely powerful technologies, and the reason I think it's so different is just because everyone is now able to build something doesn't mean, everyone is providing value to others. Providing value is still the most important, right? You want to build something that solves a problem, ideally helps you, solve your problem more efficiently, more beautifully, more aesthetically, more functionally, whatever.
Hello and welcome to the future of UX. I'm Patricia, and in today's episode I'm talking to Felix Haas. He leads the design at Lovable, and Felix and I actually go back quite a few years. We both worked in Berlin for a while and even shared the same office space at some point, and since then we stayed in touch, and I've been following what he's building, and I'm super impressed and always so excited when I see what he's working on and what he's doing. And one thing that always really fascinated me about Felix is his mindset. He comes from a design background, but he also thinks very much like an entrepreneur. So he's constantly like experimenting and building things and trying ideas. And if something doesn't work, he simply builds the next things and iterates. And I think this is a mindset that really leads you into a successful future. This was also the reason why I really wanted to have him in the podcast, because I felt there are so many things for all of us to learn. And to be honest, I think that, especially this kind of mindset is becoming one of the most important skills right now, especially in a world where AI is changing how we build products almost every single day. So in this episode, we talk about where we actually are with AI right now, what vibe coding really means, and also how building products is changing, and what all of this means for designers. I must say I really, really, really love this conversation, and I hope you will take a lot. Hello, Felix. I'm so happy to have you. Welcome to the future of UX.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be talking today to you and, a little bit about AI and design. I think we have a lot to cover.
I think so too. And I would say before we dive into AI and vibe coding and all of that, let's share a bit about your background. So how did you end up at Lovable, where you're currently working? I'm super curious because I also haven't followed the whole journey. So tell me.
Yeah. So, we know each other back from the agency times when I was running an agency called Blossom in Berlin. And after Blossom, I was moving to Paris because I've always wanted to live in Paris. It's been a city that I, have deep connections to ever since I was a child. I grew up close to the German and French border. Basically, it hasn't been that far from the city that I grew up to go to Paris. It's been
Nice.
only just been a few hours by car, and that's why Paris has always been a special city to me. And I was there to basically do a bunch of design projects myself. Been doing a bunch of design and brand consultancy projects. And I have also been doing a bunch of like angel investments because I was interested in, partnering with founders early on, doing very small angel tickets, but then supporting a lot on the brand and design side. And I got in touch with Lovable Anton through Creandum, which is a Swedish venture capital firm that I used to work with for 4 years back when I was still living in Berlin. And they put me in touch with the firm, and they were like, hey, you should check out this new company that we're looking at. It's super exciting. It's still in the early days, but what do you think from a designer point of view? And so I met Anton in London at an event, and we met, and we were immediately like hooked about, where this is going in terms of AI and design. And we ended up locking ourselves into a meeting room to discuss kind of the, what his take on like where AI is going and my take on where AI is going. And we just had a super strong connection and had never stopped working from that point. So it's been a crazy coincidence, but we had like this shared vision for where AI could go. and it's been absolutely amazing. And then I joined as an investor first, a small investor, and then ended up joining full time a few months later as basically one of the first designers. And now we're here. It's been a fun ride.
It's very impressive. I feel you're always busy, hopping from one exciting opportunity to another one. I think this is so cool to watch and very inspiring. Also to see your career. You are a designer and you don't have this typical design career, I would say. I would say like you have this design with a founder mentality combined, which I think is super interesting and especially helpful in the age we are right now with AI. Okay, so you already talked a bit about your take on AI, that you talked with Anton about it. So tell us a bit about what do you think where we are right now when it comes to AI? What phase are we actually in? Are we still experimenting, what a lot of people say, or are we already crossed into something fundamentally different? What would you say?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually believe we're still in the early days of experimenting with AI. I mean, a couple of years ago, we started playing with, ChatGPT. When the first ChatGPT model came out, people were interacting with it, and for the first time, you would experience what it's like to work with an AI. And I think that was like a little bit of a teaser. And then now, a few years later, actually 1-2 years later, tools like Lovable are here, where you can experience working with AI on a different level. It's no longer just, AI helping you to write text and, be kind of a thinking partner, but AI being almost like your co-founder. So helping you build a website, helping you build an app, ideally and eventually helping you build a business and a company. And I think that's a little bit also where, we're going. So if I look at the early version of Lovable, it was a simple prompt box like it is today, but the output was quite simple. It was like a pretty plain, simple website. It was enough for it to be quite a like aha moment for many people, because back in the days when you were, you know yourself, right? I mean, we've been designing websites for many years. When you would design and build a website, you would still go to Framer or Webflow, and you would still need to actually put in a lot of effort to make it truly great. I think the idea of putting in a lot of effort is still true today, but the way you now achieve building something has fundamentally changed, right? So like it's now less you tweaking hundreds of buttons to get an output. It's more about you're chatting with an AI engineer that helps basically with the whole execution, and you're kind of transitioning more into a creative director position where you're just giving input. You're giving input and direction, and the output is taken care of by an AI agent. And so this transition was quite a big shift. But I do believe, to answer your question, we're still in the early days. Like now you're able to build an app with Lovable. You're able to, build, integrate payments, integrate, the full back end. And that's already pretty advanced. But my take is we're still so much in the early days of what it's possible. And it's just going to be super exciting to see where this is going in the next few years.
I agree. It's very exciting to see where we went from, like looking back at the last 3-4 years, being now, and then looking in the future. I think it's super exciting. But I also think that there's a lot of noise out there. I'm talking about AI. Everyone's talking basically about AI. So from your perspective, what do you think most people still misunderstand? What's happening right now?
What I think a lot of people misunderstand is that AI is not like basically doing the job for you these days. Like I think a lot of people think, now because I have AI, basically I don't have to do anything anymore. I can just like write all my LinkedIn posts with AI. I can just write, build my website with AI, build my product with AI. And I think while this is true, yes, you can. I honestly think you can immediately see the difference between someone that, still puts in a lot of effort versus just uses AI to basically build anything. And I actually think that makes a big difference. Like you can immediately tell whether something is intentionally crafted versus one-shotted with one prompt shotted, where like there's not been going in a lot of effort and thinking. I think it's a big misconception because building a product has always been tricky, right? Like finding product market fit, building something people truly want is still as difficult as it is today. I would even argue it might even be more difficult. And even though we have, these like insanely powerful technologies, and the reason I think it's so different is because difficult is because just because everyone is now able to build something doesn't mean everyone is providing value to others. Providing value is still the most important thing, right? You want to build something that solves a problem that ideally helps you solve your problem more efficiently, more beautifully, more aesthetically, more functionally, whatever. But I believe like if you want to build a company today, yes, there's very different ways of doing it, because now you have AI and you can just like create a website, a first website, very simply. You can build your first product within a few hours. But I believe it's not the source of success. Like, you still need to put in your own kind of opinions, and you need to ask yourself, why am I building this? Does this really make sense, or am I just building it because AI tells me to do so, right? And maybe going back to Lovable, what we're trying to build is, we're not trying to build the AI engineer that just does everything for you. We're really trying to build someone that is like also challenging you and pushing back on things, like an actual co-founder would do. And I think, like, maybe you know it yourself, but with ChatGPT, I tend to hate it because it always agrees with me. You know what I mean? Like, when I try to plan something, when I try to think about something, and I'm like, do you think this is a great idea? Yes, Felix, absolutely amazing idea. Wow, we should. And I'm like, that's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted you to challenge me. Like, where do you think, are where do I think I'm lacking in terms of thinking? And that's maybe what I hate about AI. I think it's too agreeable. And that's also based on context. It doesn't know you, it doesn't know how you think, etc. But I think this is like where people, I guess, like, still misunderstand it in a way.
Yeah, I think this is such a good point, because this is also a problem that I'm seeing with the people I'm working more with, other designers. They're excited about the opportunities, so they prompt something, but the whole strategy that you need to do first, the research, really finding the pain point, this is sometimes, people think they don't really need it and AI will figure it out, and they have a result which is nice, and then they can maybe do some testing later on, which they can still do.
Yeah.
But the product thinking is so important, and I think this is what a lot of people forget, and
Yeah.
this makes everyone a bit cautious, I would say, when it comes to vibe coding, right? Because it produces all these results that are not good.
Yeah, and thinking about this mindset, what you just mentioned, I also think there's something interesting happening. You still need to do research. I fully agree. What I also see is the way you now validate a product idea also changed quite a lot. So back in the days, I mean, I don't know, like when we started with design and like, basically opening, I don't know, Adobe XD, Sketch, and then eventually Figma. I remember it was a lot about, just coming up with the first version, putting that in front of people, and somewhat trying to get feedback on a static mockup. What I see now, which I see as a powerful shift in design, is the way you get feedback on something has fundamentally changed. Like, now you can get feedback pretty much on a pretty much like first working product quite quickly, and that changes everything, right? Because I mean, like when you try to get feedback on something that's only in your mind, and you try to sketch it and you try to get feedback on it, it's quite difficult. But if you put something into people's hands and they can play with it, then they're way more likely to tell you what they like or dislike about it. And so what I love about AI is the ability to play, is the ability to like create prototypes, ideas, and just for fun also. Like, it's just so easy. Like, I usually build an app at least a couple of times a week, where, like, yesterday I was just building an app for the team where we have this problem that since we're scaling so rapidly, it's very hard to keep consistency in terms of brand and design, right? Like, we're onboarding a couple of people every week. And so there was a small thing, which is, whenever someone joins the team, the person usually wants to post on LinkedIn about, hey, I just joined Lovable as an engineer or as a product expert or whatever. And usually people would then go into Figma themselves and just create a random asset, right? And post that and misplace the logo. And like, I've seen interesting things. Let's put it that way. But now we've built a small app which basically allows you, so it's called the New Joiners app. And you just upload a picture of yourself. And then Lovable, the app that we've built, is based on a few templates that we predefined in the design team. And now it automatically generates a visual asset for you that is completely on brand, looks great, that you can then just share on your socials. And so
Cool.
what I love about AI is that you can just build whatever. And small things, like back in the days, I would never spend, design and engineering resources on like a New Joiners app, right? Like people would be like, "What the fuck? Where are you spending your time?" But I kind of love it that you now have the resources to, the AI capabilities to build these these small apps within a few hours that then just scale by themselves.
And I also really love the agency, like, of this example, right? Like finding a problem, okay, not just like, outsource it, find people to do it. I'm doing this myself now, quickly in 1 or 2 hours, and then I'm sharing this with the team. I think this is also a good example of a great mindset for designers that's so needed. I find a problem, I will solve it myself, because now I have the capabilities to do so. So you're working with a lot of designers. What do you think are some of or how are the roles changing? I mean, of course, agency is important, but what would you say, like a good designer for the next decade, hopefully, what kind of skills would you need?
I think so. We're talking a lot about these things internally because, I mean, we're also hiring and we're looking at different profiles pretty much all the time. Basically, one thing we see or we are looking for is one is curiosity in designers and generally in people, because like we talk a lot about that in the team, like because technology is changing so rapidly. Basically everything is changing. Like pretty much every single week we have like something new. Like Anthropic is launching a new model. I don't know, Gemini is bringing out a new research paper. Like there's so many things happening that the number one skill I think you need in the age of AI is just constant, this like curiosity. Like if you are just by nature curious about what's going on, you are going to develop, right? Like you're going to be on top of things. And I think what we're looking for and what I'm seeing is, the best designers and the best kind of builders maybe these days are the ones that are just like on top of the game. Like they do the research, they talk to people, they're curious, they're naturally curious about what's happening, and they play with that. So yesterday we were hosting a design event here at our office. We had around 100 designers from mainly Stockholm, but also other places. And we had, for example, a designer who is leading the brand team at Vercel, and he's been one of the first brand designers there. And what was so interesting is that seeing his explorations with AI, like he comes from a traditional brand background, but how he has been thinking about the brand at Vercel and how he played with different tools and different kind of frameworks to create brand assets has been absolutely phenomenal. And I think the reason he did so was because he's just naturally a very curious mind. And I think, that's an important one. Curiosity. And
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that makes so much sense. I mean, curiosity leads you super far, I feel. I'm wondering, what do you say, if you talk to a lot of designers, so are most designers super curious about AI, or are they maybe also a little bit worried? So I'm wondering, maybe there are some things where you would say designers really should stop doing this, but maybe they should double down on something else. You already mentioned curiosity, but are there some things where you feel like designers should definitely stop doing that?
Interesting question. So I think, in terms of curiosity about AI, I think curiosity more like generally. I like designers that just think generally about things, not necessarily just AI. Also, like I was talking to another designer yesterday. He was telling me about his passion for gardening, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. Gardening, like flowers, right?" And it was like, in an age of AI and when AGI is taking over, he's just going to spend time in his garden, planting flowers.
Oh, I'm jealous.
These are the kind of things where I'm like, interesting. Like, yes, like what's your passion? What are you actually doing, when AGI is taking over? Maybe that should be an interview question. Like, imagine a
Yeah.
world where AGI is taking over anything. Like, what would you do? That tells you a lot about the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that super interesting. But going back to your question, like, what is it that I see designers doing versus not doing? I think one is, you know it yourself, right? But like, basically, as a designer, you will only evolve your design skills if you continue designing and if you continue building. And like, I mean, like when basically, if I look at myself, like everything I've learned about design, I have learned through doing it, through designing it, through building stuff, failing hundreds of times, building something no one wanted, and then understanding, okay, maybe I should try something else. And I think mm, this is now more true than ever, because now the design process kind of changed. Like, you're now no longer done when maybe you've never been done. Like, you're no longer done when you are done in Figma. You're done when it's in the hands of users. When it comes to building a product and designing a product, I think that has also been true actually before AI. Like, a great designer basically didn't stop when didn't stop at the dev handover, but basically stopped when the designs that someone created were actually in production. I think that has actually, now thinking about it, always been true. But I guess the gap is just smaller now. Like, now you are almost you can be the one pushing things into production, and just that just changes everything, because then your feedback loops also with users can be much shorter, because it's no longer you design something, you need to talk to a bunch of engineers, they build it, takes a bunch of time, and then you get feedback on it. It can really be you design something, you put it into people's hands, you get feedback on it, and then you can redesign it, improve it, iterate. And I think this is just like super exciting. Because now you're completely in charge. Like, you can really, like, you can put something out there today, and that just unlocks like new possibilities. I also see a lot of designers turning into design engineers. I don't necessarily believe everyone has to. It helps when you want to build like a complex technological product. I think it helps to fundamentally understand the substance of a product.
What would this role actually, like, how would this role look like?
I think it would be like really like a design engineer working in the code base. We have a bunch of design engineers at Lovable. They basically work as engineers on the actual code base, in the code base, and do design tweaks and build features end to end themselves. Most of them are not even using Figma anymore. It's crazy. They're using our design system, our components that are already in code, and then they're just gonna iterate live on the product. Which is crazy. I don't necessarily believe that the best designers in the world necessarily have to be able to code. I don't think so. I think the question about what makes a great designer is the same that it was before we had AI, to be fully honest. It's about, truly understanding why you're building something and how you're creating value and designing the experience, designing something that feels trustworthy, that feels joyful, that people enjoy using. I think that's a big one, actually. I don't know how you think about it, but like, so interesting looking at, there are so many products being built every single day. How do you then stand out, right? Like, how do you build something that people want to use? Like,
Yeah, I
what's your
agree.
take on like that? Because yeah.
No, I totally agree. And I think this is a big, I mean, this is not a big challenge, but I think something that people really need to understand, because a lot of products, they don't really solve a problem right now. They look the same. So if you also want to have a nice design, a nice branding, you need to do some proper thinking beforehand. You need to maybe do a mood board. You need to come up with a strategy, with a concept. And then you also need to feed the AI, also Lovable,
Yeah.
right? Like, it looks pretty much the same if you just have a random prompt. But if you share screenshots, if you maybe share a design library, if you can, some resources, images that you create, it looks super nice. Or different components that you get from the internet, There are a ton of websites where you can copy and paste some pre-made components, which is super nice, like wonderful gradients, cool backgrounds, animation, etc. So I think you need to be very strategic about what you actually want to produce. But another thing that you mentioned earlier was super interesting, and this was the not being scared to fail. and trying things out and experimenting. And this is what I'm seeing also with the students from my course. I'm running like a boot camp. And the biggest blocker for people is being able or failing, trying things out, and then it's not working. And then they're like frustrated and they feel like they failed. They're scared to share it. And I mean, I can totally relate. It's super frustrating if you spend some time and then it's not working and you feel like the whole world, every designer knows more than you. They all figured it out. They all know what's going on. And you're the only one, not really knowing what to do and then sharing something you're not proud of. And I think this is exactly the wrong mindset.
100%.
No one has figured it out. No one has figured it out. No one knows everything. We are all learning. And I think this is so important to focus on that, right? Because everything's
100%.
changing every day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
And I think the only way the only way you will learn how to build something that people want is by first building something people don't want, because otherwise you're never going to learn it. Like like building something truly amazing is the most difficult thing in the world. Like there's a reason most startups fail, like because most companies never manage to build something that people really want. Like most founders build something they want, but they're not building something people want. And I think you need to develop this muscle of what is it I'm building and why am I building it? And how do I know it actually works? And I think the only way you do that is by going out there, basically going into this like battlefield of creators and just like fighting, like just like building stuff, it doesn't matter. And I think the best designers today, they constantly build stuff. They're just building things. They're not building things in Figma, but they're just building things live. And it's a way to express, but it's also a way to learn and strengthen your skills, strengthen your product mindset. And I think this is very, very underrated. It's also something I look at when we do interviews. It's like, hey, what have you built recently? And if it's just like, here's my Figma file, then I'm like, but what have you built? Like, it's not about like, and it's I think there's again, the best way to become a truly great product driven founder or designer is by constantly actually building something. Small things, like it can be an email signature tool, it can be your personal to-do app. It doesn't matter. What matters is the process. So like just build something, figure it out, put it in front of people, see what they like, dislike. Do that 100 times, and I can promise you'll become a great designer and a great founder. Like there's no other way. It's always been like that. The best founders in the world, they've built so many things. It's just like, like it's the same with in sports, right? You just have to do it. Like you need to develop the muscles for it. And the same is true in AI and design, and it's never been more important. And Lovable is just one tool. Like I'm not even saying like you go on. I mean, yes, go try out Lovable, but I don't even care about which tool you use. Honestly, it's more about curiosity. Go out there. What are the tools out there, and like build something, launch it, buy your domain. Buy a custom domain and just put something out there. One thing, maybe a little hot take. Like for example, if someone sends me a CV as a PDF, I'm out. Because especially as a designer, like if you're still sending me a PDF as your CV, I'm like, in which age are you living? Like it can be the most simple website or app or whatever, but I do believe like everyone should have a personal online presence in today's world. It can be a simple portfolio. If you don't have work to show, then just create a simple note about yourself or whatever. Like, it can be as simple as your picture and then what you believe in or who you are, and then maybe here, contact now or something. But like, I think everyone should have something digital these days. Again, because if you don't, you're not staying on top of things. I think that's so important.
And what would be nice? If on this webpage, you would also see something personal, like the example with the gardening, something where you feel like I can connect to this person, especially in the age of AI, where everyone's basically using ChatGPT for writing their emails, where everything's the same. Personality becomes so important. And like having these conversations or these conversation starters with like, what are you excited about? What do you do in your free time besides doom scrolling on TikTok? What, what's your passion?
Yeah. And I think I honestly also think the trend is going away from this like perfectionism. So, the Instagram times, right? Everyone was trying to be the perfect person on Instagram, right? Like you would, I don't know, go to Bali, have this like $6,000 camera and shoot these like high-end pictures so that you can then post it on your Instagram and be like, I'm living life. What is now changing, I think, is AI is basically generating perfection all the time, and it sucks, right? Like AI generated perfection. I can already see that happening on Instagram. AI generated videos, AI generated content. You don't even know anymore what's like real or not. And what I love about that is that we're kind of going away from everything has to be perfect. And we're now moving towards a trend which is more like authenticity again, authentic content, imperfectionism, personal touches, right? These like polished visuals on Instagram never really had personality. It was always like just showing off. And I loved when you just talked about personal touch on a website. I honestly think this is like the most beautiful thing these days. Like you want to make sure that you put in your personal touch, even if it's not perfect. But I think the best products or the best portfolios out there are the ones that have these like personal touches. It could even be a section about what's the music you're listening to, like what are the artists you follow, like I don't know, what's something you've read that changed your mindset or about something. These small personal touches, I think, are so important these days. And I actually think imperfection, like almost like going back to art, like when I think about artists, right, they have their own definition of perfectionism, but if you look at it objectively, you're like, this looks like a draft, right? But to them, it was their own, and I think this is like the way we look at perfectionism. I think fully changes. Like to me, a perfect app also is no longer a great app. Like I think the best apps out there that I also use personally are the ones that are so simple. No fancy, flashy hundreds of features, not overloaded with perfect like widgets or functions, app buttons, whatever, but like very simple, reduced interfaces that just get the job done.
Love that.
Yeah.
And unpredictability a little bit. At least this is for me. If something happens that I am not expecting.
Yeah.
Because I feel with AI, I know exactly what happens. I mean, it's great, it's perfect, it's polished.
Yeah.
But if things happen that are unpredictable, I'm always like, oh, wow, this is so cool. And this can't really happen with AI, I would say. Like, if it's something cool. I don't have an example, unfortunately, but I hope you know what I mean.
Unpredictability is super important. Like if you design something and then you create an experience that the user didn't predict or was not expecting, that I think is like Champions League. Like because then if you make something people use and then it just works the way they think it works, then you've already achieved what most people don't, because then you actually build something that is truly usable to that person. There's this diagram which I still think is true today, which is about emotional design. So where you have a few products people absolutely love, you have a lot of products, no, not a lot, like you have a little bit more products people use because they're functional, but you have a lot of products that people kind of build but are not usable at all. Achieving usability is already really hard. Building something that you actually know how to use and it provides value is already hard, right? Product market fit. But building something people love and like tell their friends about is the Champions League, right? That's the hardest part ever. Like building something people use is doable and people like, but like building something you tell your friends about and you dream about and like you're like, holy shit, this changed my life. This is like what most people will never achieve. And I think this is a lot about delightful experiences, unpredictable things, the unexpected, the extra mile, the extra detail that AI is not generating for you. You know,
Hmm.
this is where you differentiate someone that just built something with AI and someone that builds with AI, but, thinks it through end to end and keeps the human touch in the loop. Um,
And
yeah.
this is such a big change because I remember also when I was working with lots of different companies on UX project, the topic was always shipping the next feature and
Hmm.
making the product better, but also much bigger. Now, what you just said with the simplicity, I think things are changing so much, right? Like not only the interface, but also the feature. Sometimes you don't need that, or things are super personalized. So,
Yeah.
like for different kind of users, you have different kind of services or apps, or you filter better. You don't show everything. And this is such an interesting UX phenomenon that I'm
Yeah.
seeing right now, which I
Yeah.
love. I mean,
Yeah.
that makes me super excited, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's completely like everything is changing, but I find it so exciting.
yeah, me too.
And I think what is important is you need to stay on top of things, and I think you do so by building. You can read a lot about AI. You can read a lot about how design is changing in the age of AI. But I honestly believe you will only truly learn it if you design in the age of AI. Like if you design with AI. It's so funny. Like we were talking about onboarding the other day at Lovable and whether we want to explain users how to use the app. And we ended up not doing so because we want people to use Lovable in order to learn how it works.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because if you look back, a few companies back in the days have always done that. Google, for example. If you go to google.com and you scroll down, first of all, you can't scroll because you only have to search, right? But that's so intentional. They want you to use it because if you use it, you immediately understand how it works. You put in a search request, you get a result, that's it. And then you can scroll and explore the product. We kind of want to go in a similar direction. We don't want to explain Lovable in that sense. We want for you to experience it as quickly as possible so that you learn how to use it and also see the value instantly. Um, Maybe a hot take that I have for like how to basically also build a website these days is I was recently writing a little article about it. The idea of like time to value changed quite a lot. So back in the days, you had a website where founders would try to sell their product to you, right? So you would come on a website, you would read about it, you would scroll down, you would read testimonials, etc. Now I think the best websites are the ones that make you experience the product extremely quickly because that just builds trust differently. Like if you're reading about a product, that's the one thing. But if you use a product and you get value out of it, your trust level is immediately, 10x higher. And so this is so exciting, I think, because I think we will have more products that are more like self-explanatory because AI will also help a lot with that. You will have a lot of AI agents that will just like take your hand and guide you through the experience. And so you no longer will need this like marketing website where you tell me how a product works. You just show it to me. You give it to me. I'll play with it. You have an agent taking care of my problem, and then it comes back with a solution. And then I'm like, holy shit, I'm blown away by that. And be, and if that is successful, I would then also immediately sign up because then I'm like already hooked. Whereas if you make me scroll and then you want to make me book a demo and then it takes me a week or so to like jump on a sales call with someone, I'm like, I don't think that's the way to go. Um,
That's true.
and so there's lots of things changing, both in the way we design products, in the way we design websites. Maybe like one more last hot take. Maybe that's, and then we can jump into the next. Is the I think building a product alone is no longer enough. If you're building a company and you're only focusing on building your product, I think you're gonna have a hard time. First, because it's the most insanely hard thing to build a truly great product. Like, if you achieve that, like, congrats. I mean, then you're basically one out of very few people achieving that. What I think is equally important is building this like authenticity and brand around your product. So when we talked about how do you stand out in the age of AI, I think you stand out by not only having a product, but by building a movement around it and a cult around it, something people connect with on a more human level. It's hard to connect with a product. It's way easier to connect with another human. And you connect with another human if you listen to their stories and if you listen to why they've built something or what it's been like using a certain product. And so from like a brand perspective, I find it interesting. We're going into that direction very soon as well, I think, is telling a little bit more about, less talking about the product itself, more talking about what are people doing with that product. Steve Jobs has always been talking about it. Like his marketing advice was always never say we're having the best product. Like never talk about the features you have. Always talk about what are people doing with those features. Because people connect with that differently. And I just think this is so true now. Like, don't just build a product. Think about what are people doing with your product. 11 Labs also does this well. They were just hosting an AI summit in London a few weeks ago, and there was one person attending that lost his voice. Like, he lost his voice. He's no longer able to speak. And 11 Labs was basically telling a story about that person, how their voice models now have given voice back to that person.
Wow.
And that was like a super emotional moment, and the person was attending as well as a speaker where the voice of the 11 Labs voice model was then kind of taking the vocals. And this was like the craziest emotional moment for 11 Labs, right? And it's been like I have people today approach me on that, like be like, hey, have you heard of that? You know? And it's crazy. Like they would have never approached me, be like, hey, have you heard of this like new feature? Yeah, that's cool, but you know, it's like different if you connect on this like emotional level. So it's the best brand and marketing move you can do. Like, don't just talk about your features. Talk about, you know, what is it people do with it. And
I love that.
That's what I would double down on.
I think this is a wonderful example, and also really emphasizes the importance of empathy during research and understanding people. So we as designers think, oh, we need to do user research and we need to do interviews. Maybe we need to zoom out a little bit and think about like, how can people use this feature? What are stories that we can tell? And dip into marketing a little bit, dip into development. So wiggle between the different departments a little bit, because I think this is so important. And this is something what I would also see in design. Thinking about those use cases, how we could really help people and then tell the stories. I think so important. Great example. I think it would also be interesting to hear more about like what Lovable is doing. I saw one example actually on LinkedIn where someone shared that I think like he built an app where you could upload a photo of your pet, and then it got you heard about it, right? It got redesigned into like a French portrait, I don't know, from the 1700s, and then it was sent to you per drop shipping. It's so simple, but this is so smart, you know? I also want that for Wilma. It's so cute.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. You should. Yeah, you should. It's the small things, for sure.
Yeah, all the small things. Yeah, Felix, thank you so much for all the insights that you shared. I really, really loved our conversations. I wish we could do that more often. Hopefully not like 3 years from now, but hopefully very soon in the future. Are there any resources that you would like to share where people could find you? Anything that you share, what you find helpful, or anything else?
Cool. I mean, so I started writing a little bit of a blog on Substack, which is like called designplusai.com, I think, and plus just written out. That's something you can check out. I think I'm always like sharing resources on my blog, and then also on LinkedIn or X. I'm always enjoy sharing some like provocative opinions, and then love like debating with people publicly. I just love that, because then you can always just have a very like transparent conversation about things. And other than that, you know, we are probably starting our podcast very soon again, Patrick and myself, Quick Coffee. So that might be another one to check out, which is interesting because we've been documenting our entire journey. When we did the first Quick Coffee episode, Patrick and I, we were still, I don't know, building our first company. I don't know. It was very, very early days. And now things definitely changed.
This is so cool. Also to follow the journey. Yeah. I think this is very inspiring to see there's not this linear path, but you go back and then left and right, and things are changing, and you change with this and see where the excitement actually leads you. I love that.
What I love about podcasts is that it's like your own, almost like public diary. Like if I listen myself, like on the like early episodes, it's almost like a written diary
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like the vocal diary. I love that, an audio diary. Yeah.
Yeah, like a journal, right? Yeah.
A journal. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. This is also how I see it. Basically, like sharing my own thoughts, especially when I have the solo episodes, just like what I learned, what I think is interesting, and then people can listen to it or not, you know? It's their choice. Yeah, super cool. Thank you so much. I really loved the conversation, and yeah, super excited to see where things are heading with AI, with Lovable, with you. We'll definitely follow you. Thank you, Felix.
Thanks
Bye.
for chatting. Bye.
Bye.